Order. Order. Call the honourable member for Hotham.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Today, like many of these dark days of the Abbott government, I sat through question time and I despaired for Australia,
Order.
Deputy Speaker.
Order.
I actually did. I sat back in my seat and I despaired for Australia, and it was not because of the sad and relentless negativity that we see a good example of through these interjections here. It wasn't even because of the appalling small-mindedness that we continue to see from this government. Deputy Speaker, it was because of the total lack of vision that we saw on the other side of the chamber, and that is what we get delivered up by this government day after day after day. Now, Deputy Speaker, this really worries me because of all the times that I've sat in this parliament. I have to say that this is a time when we really need vision. When we think about whether we're prepared for the economy of the future, the important policy debate that the government is trying to so enthusiastically participate in, we see a few things that we probably should be concerned about. I'll talk about some of these issues. One of them, Deputy Speaker, for example, is our engagement with Asia. Now, all Australians out there on the street can tell you that Asia is going to be important to Australia's future. But I think that probably not many of them know that only 9% of Australian businesses are actually doing business in Asia today. Another indicator that worries me, we've seen about, over the last decade in Australia, a stagnation in improvement on our Year 12 retention rate. Yeah, a lot of the countries that we're competing with are seeing improvements on those. Even when we look more broadly at the performance of our education system, Deputy Speaker, we see real causes for concern. Australia's education system is declining in performance year after year, and the countries that we've previously thought of as the countries that will be kind of giving the great ideas to are outperforming us now. China, for example, is right up there at the top of the league tables. Now, Deputy Speaker, Jobs of the Future fits right in here into this important discussion about where we're going as a country. I spoke a little bit before in parliament today about some of the reasons why we might be really optimistic about the future opportunities for Australia. And it's true that we have this really important history of innovation in our country. Australian scientists are incredible people. They invented spray-on skin, they invented the black box. We know the CSIRO was integral in the invention of Wi-Fi. And all of these things do give me great cause to think really positively about the future. But again, Deputy Speaker, I think that the seismic shift in the way that our economy functions has not been really well discussed in this parliament, perhaps until the Leader of the Opposition gave his budget reply speech last night. So, a few days ago, excuse me. So some of the important things that I think that the Leader of the Opposition talked about are the fact that we'll see in about 2 decades that 47% of the jobs that exist in our economy today are going to be gone. That is enormous change, certainly change that we haven't seen in that last 20 years in Australia. We also know that as the economy changes, we're seeing lower-skilled jobs and middle-skilled jobs disappear and more high-skilled jobs being created. And one of the important points that the Leader of the Opposition made, Deputy Speaker, was that 75% of the fastest-growing jobs categories are in these STEM professions. And of course, when we look at whether our economy is prepared for this future that's available to it, we also see a lot of causes for concern. So 75% of the jobs that are growing are in STEM, yet as our Shadow Minister for Communications foreshadowed, we're actually declining in the ICT graduates that we're producing as a country. Now, we want to debate these issues and we want to have this discussion, and yet what we see on the government is guffawing and laughing and this relentless focus on the politics of the day-to-day, and I do think it's very sad, Deputy Speaker. Now, I want to talk about some of the things that Labor wants to do in response to these really important changes that are going to affect the lives of all Australians over the next 50 years or so. One of the ideas that the Leader of the Opposition talked about in his budget reply speech is the Smart Investment Fund. And, Deputy Speaker, this is a really important idea, $500 million that Labor wants to see put into this important start-up community. And we know that Seek.com, for example, started with a $2.5 million grant from government. It's now a $5 billion organisation, Deputy Speaker, and we can see government playing a really important role here. We've talked a little bit in this debate about coding, so I won't cover off that ground again, but just to say the third final component of this was around STEM education. The Leader of the Opposition spoke about some really important ways that we can increase participation in STEM, especially the participation of women. Deputy Speaker, Labor is the only political party in Australia talking about this. I'm really proud of that, and I just wish that the government would step up and show some leadership on these subjects.
Order.